Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Okay, great. Today, we're looking at this text about heaven
Okay.
that has this, well, let's just say unique perspective on what happens when, when Lucifer returns after being cast out.
Yeah, I think we all know that story.
Yeah, but you might think you know this story.
Okay.
But trust me, this one, it throws some curveballs.
Uh-huh.
So get ready for a deep dive into, well, all the emotional fallout, especially from Jesus's perspective.
Wow. What I find so interesting about this text is, well, it's just the audacity of it. You know, Lucifer's return is one thing, but it's the way that it impacts Jesus, like the unexpected envy.
Oh, yeah.
That's what really makes you question everything.
Yeah, it's like, hold on a second, what?
Right.
I know, right?
Right.
And it starts by painting this incredibly vivid picture of heaven. You know, these landscapes of like pure radiance, a silver river, mountains, glittering with gemstones.
I mean, you can practically feel the awe.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And that really sets the stage for God's gathering.
Yeah, summoning all the angels is already a huge event.
Right.
But then, well, Lucifer shows up, and he's not just, forgiven.
Yeah.
He's fully restored.
Oh, wow.
The text describes him as, well, it's fascinating.
What is it?
He's like this blend of light and shadow.
Oh, wow.
Pride humbled, but not erased.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like he's carrying the weight of his fall, but also radiating this newfound grace.
Right. Okay, so how do the angels react?
I mean, it really runs the gamut, Some are just stunned, others, well, they're hesitant.
Oh, okay.
Maybe even a bit skeptical.
I get it.
But God is unwavering.
Oh, really?
Welcoming Lucifer back with open arms.
I see.
It's a powerful image of divine mercy.
Right.
But it really throws heaven for a loop.
It does.
Yeah.
And then we get to Jesus.
Right.
And, well, it doesn't say it outright, but you sense this, like, confusion, a storm of unfamiliar emotions, and that feeling.
Yeah.
The text names it.
It does. What is it?
Envy.
Envy. Wow.
Yeah.
Which is such a raw human emotion.
Oh, no.
To find it in a divine being, it's
wild.
Jarring, yeah.
I know.
And the text doesn't shy away from it either.
Right.
Describes this envy as subtle but potent. This force that's causing, well, genuine inner turmoil for Jesus.
Wow. Yeah, you really wonder, how can this even be?
Exactly.
I mean, why would Jesus, who sacrificed himself
for all of us,
experience envy toward Lucifer, the one who
rebelled? That's the question, isn't it?
It is.
And, well, the text does hint at some answers.
Does it?
One interpretation is that Lucifer's redemption, it throws a wrench in how Jesus understands his own sacrifice.
Oh, wow.
Imagine devoting yourself to atoning for, well, humanity's sins, and then the one who spearheaded it all is just welcomed back like that.
Wow.
It makes you question the nature of, well, everything.
Right, of sacrifice, of justice.
Of everything, yeah.
It makes you wonder, did it mean less than he thought?
Right.
Does it diminish what he did?
That gets to the heart of what some call divine uniqueness.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and the text doesn't explicitly use the phrase.
No.
But you see it in Jesus's experience.
Right.
That being who is fully God and fully human, grappling with emotions we all feel.
So Lucifer's return makes him feel like, what?
Like his position is less special. Like he's not the only one, maybe?
Okay, yeah.
It's such a human reaction.
In this divine context.
Exactly.
Right? It's like a fundamental truth has been shaken.
But it goes even further.
Really? How?
This exchange of glances.
Oh, yes.
Between Jesus and Lucifer.
I got chills reading that.
I know, right?
No words.
But you feel it all.
Everything unsaid.
Lucifer knows something's up.
But Jesus, he's frozen.
Can't process it.
Yeah.
It's a turning point. This silent acknowledgement of, well, everything.
Yeah.
And it's only going to get more complicated.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can just feel that look between them. You know,
absolutely.
Like lingering.
Yeah.
This rift forming. Not just between them, between Jesus and, well, this whole version of heaven.
Right, and that's where the text starts to challenge our assumptions about what heaven is supposed to be,
Yeah, like we think.
Harmony, bliss.
Right, perfect peace.
But here, it's different.
Yeah. What is it like then?
tension, conflict, emotions we think of as, well,
human.
Yeah, imperfect.
Okay, so how does Jesus deal with this then?
Well, it must be.
It's going to be tough, right?
Oh, yeah.
All these negative emotions.
You're in a place that's supposed to be,
all love and light.
Right.
Yeah.
The text describes him withdrawing, like retreating inward.
Oh, okay.
Can't reconcile it all.
What do you mean?
The envy, his role, his own, divinity.
Right.
This contrast then
Between
the supposed purity of heaven and this messy reality
of just being human.
Yeah.
Even Jesus.
And what about Lucifer? Does he
tries to reach out
to Jesus?
Yeah, understand what's going on.
But
Jesus is cold.
Oh, wow.
Distant.
Widening the rift.
Yeah, heartbreaking in a way.
It is. It's like
these two figures
at the center of everything.
But struggling to connect.
It makes you wonder, can anyone escape this?
Escape what?
The complexities of human emotion.
That's a good question.
I mean, if Jesus...
The embodiment of love.
Yeah, can feel envy. What does that say about, anything?
It's thought-provoking.
It is.
Suggests that maybe...
Even divine beings aren't immune to all this.
That's a radical idea.
It is.
Challenges everything, doesn't it?
It does.
Makes you wonder, though, does this come from insecurity?
Insecurity.
Yeah, I know it sounds strange.
Yeah.
But is there a part of him?
Of Jesus.
Yeah, that feels threatened
by
Lucifer's return? That he's not.
Not the only one?
Yeah, like God's favorite.
Interesting take.
Is it there in the text?
It plays with this idea of hierarchy, even in the divine.
Like a pecking order.
Kinda. God at the top. Then Jesus.
Unique position.
God and man, the sacrifice.
Right, but then
Lucifer comes back.
And it's like
God accepts him.
Disrupts it all.
Yeah.
So then
we're left with this.
Yeah.
If this can cause such turmoil,
yeah.
What does that say about forgiveness itself?
Is there a limit?
To grace. Even God's love.
Yeah. Can it erase the past?
And if there are limits,
does that diminish it?
It's about how we understand mercy, whether it truly applies to everyone.
Even the worst of us.
It's heavy stuff.
It's more than just the story, isn't it?
Oh, much more.
Makes you question.
Everything.
Heaven, good and evil.
Yeah, love, forgiveness.
This text is something else.
It is. Throws a wrench in our ideas.
Makes us confront
uncomfortable truths.
About ourselves, our beliefs.
About everything.
Powerful stuff.
Oh, yeah. Stays with you.
Makes you think about your own picture of heaven.
It is.
Like, grow up with these images.
Peace, harmony.
Right. But this text suggests
something more.
Yeah, dynamic, maybe even
volatile.
A little bit, yeah.
It's like heaven itself is changing.
Yeah, like mirroring what's happening.
With Lucifer and, Jesus.
And the text doesn't shy away from that at all.
No, doesn't try to smooth it over.
Right.
Like, those emotions aren't there.
Makes it relatable, though.
It does, doesn't it?
Like, who hasn't felt that envy?
It's so human.
But to see it
on a cosmic scale.
With Jesus, Lucifer, it's
startling.
And comforting at the same time.
Comforting.
Yeah, like a reminder that even in heaven,
supposedly perfect,
you can't escape
emotions.
Those messy emotions.
Part of who we are.
Even on that level. Yeah. So if we accept that, that heaven can be like this.
A place of conflict.
Yeah. Turmoil. What does that tell us about forgiveness, the purpose of it?
And heaven itself.
Right. Like if it's not
just a reward.
Yeah. Eternal bliss, no changes. Then what? What is it?
It throws down the gauntlet, this text.
It does.
Makes you rethink everything.
Makes you wonder, is it more about growth, evolution, even for divine beings?
Wow, yeah, like
perfection isn't or static, right? Maybe it's about
embracing those imperfections.
Continuing to learn.
Even in heaven.
Powerful stuff.
Makes you think about your own forgiveness, too.
In what way?
If Jesus, all that grace,
Yeah.
can struggle with forgiving Lucifer.
What does that mean for us?
Complicates things, yeah.
It's not always easy.
A process, a journey.
With ups and downs.
Maybe that's okay.
Maybe that's what makes it,
meaningful.
This has been, incredible.
It has.
We've covered so much.
About everything.
Heaven, forgiveness, even
the nature of
divine beings.
What's your biggest takeaway?
I think, for me, it's that even in heaven, there's this profound humanity. It makes you wonder,
Are they more like us?
Then we realize, right? And on that note, to our listeners, I'll leave you with this thought.
Okay.
If heaven could be shaken by all of this,
envy, conflict,
the human struggles, what does that say about us?
About our potential?
For growth, redemption.
Even for
achieving that.
Yeah.
In perfect perfection.
That's a good one.
Keep that in mind as you
explore this text.
And what it means for you.
Yeah, that's great. It reimagines the relationship between Jesus and Lucifer.
Okay.
But after Lucifer's redemption.
After.
Yeah, and his return to heaven. So kind of like Paradise Lost, but with a twist.
Interesting. So not the typical fall of Lucifer story.
Not this time. This time, the conflict comes from his return and all the ripples that it creates within heaven itself.
I see. So we're led to believe that everything's peaceful.
Right, on the surface, yeah. But there are these subtle signs that something's off.
Like what?
Well, the author mentions whispers of doubt on Earth and even a fracture in the light, which I don't know about you, but I found that a pretty powerful image.
Definitely. It sets the stage for, well, something brewing beneath the surface.
Exactly. And this unease, right? It's not just in heaven.
You're right. You see it mirrored in the human world, too.
Totally. Conflicts, strained relationships. It's almost as if the turmoil in heaven is bleeding into human experience.
Yeah, it is. And, well, the source of this tension, it's not some cosmic battle between good and evil.
So what is it then? What's causing all this trouble?
Jealousy.
Jealousy.
Jealousy. And not just any jealousy. We're talking about jealousy within the divine family.
Hold on. Are you saying Jesus is jealous of Lucifer?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Wow. That's definitely not something you hear every day.
It flips the script on how we usually see these figures. We've got Jesus struggling with, well, with very human emotions as he tries to wrap his head around Lucifer's redemption, which seems so effortless.
I can see how that would be hard to process. I mean, Jesus sacrificed himself for humanity. He literally took on the weight of all their sins.
Right.
And then Lucifer, who rebelled against God, gets welcomed back with open arms.
Exactly.
That's got to sting a little.
For sure. And the text even mentions Jesus questioning his own role. You know, his sacrifice.
Really?
Yeah. You can almost feel that doubt creeping in.
So, okay, we've got all this jealousy. Does it lead to some big showdown in heaven?
Well, not exactly. The story takes us to a place called the Gardens of Radiance.
Gardens of Radiance. That sounds pleasant.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it highlights the contrast between heaven's outward beauty and all this turmoil underneath.
I see. So it's in this setting that Jesus and Lucifer finally meet.
They do. And let me tell you, their exchange is anything but peaceful.
Okay, I'm hooked. What happens?
So Lucifer approaches Jesus, and he's genuinely remorseful, wants to reconcile, mend things, but there's this distance between them.
And this is where the jealousy comes out.
Right. Jesus contrasts Lucifer's easy redemption with his own sacrifice. He even asks Lucifer straight up, "Do you believe yourself worthy of God's love after everything?"
Whoa, talk about a loaded question. How does Lucifer respond to that?
He's actually incredibly humble, admits he doesn't know if he's worthy, but recognizes that he is loved.
Huh.
And he says that love, it humbles him.
So even in this tense moment, he's not trying to defend himself.
Not at all. He's owning his past. But Jesus, despite being divine, seems to really struggle with this. It makes you wonder, what happens when even divine figures question their own worthiness, you know?
Yeah, that's a good question. What about the other angels, though, like Gabriel, Michael? How do they react to all of this?
There's mention of their sorrow. They see this rift growing, but can't do anything about it. And adding to that, you have God's silence.
He doesn't get involved.
Nope. He's this distant presence throughout.
God's silence is almost like another character in all this. It's like everyone in heaven is holding their breath, waiting to see what happens next.
And then things really shift. Fueled by all of this turmoil, Jesus makes a decision. He decides to leave heaven.
He leaves, just like that.
It's described as a descent, a shimmering light streaking towards earth.
He's abandoning his divine purpose.
He's searching for something. It's this combination of things, the jealousy, of course, but also wanting to redefine himself beyond, being the sacrificial lamb.
I guess that makes sense.
But what's really unsettling is, there are these hints of a growing darkness within him. He's carrying the weight of all of humanity's suffering.
Yeah.
And it seems to be taking its toll.
Wow. That's a pretty different take on how we usually see Jesus. He's not just this perfect beacon of light. He's human, struggling with, stuff we can all relate to.
Exactly. And that's what makes this story so compelling. It forces us to confront this idea that even divine figures experience doubt, jealousy, even just a yearning for something more.
It definitely makes you think. So we have this dramatic exit from heaven. Does Lucifer just stay put and enjoy his newfound redemption?
Actually, he senses a shift in Jesus, like a descent into darkness, and he feels responsible.
Because of his own past.
Probably. And in a truly remarkable turn of events, he decides to follow Jesus.
But he leaves heaven too, but he just got back.
It's not an easy decision, the text makes that clear, but he can't abandon his brother to this darkness.
There's a real sense of tragedy there. This brotherhood, once so strong, now fractured. It's very personal, this conflict.
Very much so. And the setting for their eventual reunion, it just amplifies that sense of tragedy. Lucifer finds Jesus standing on a cliff, overlooking a landscape ravaged by storms.
The storm mirroring the turmoil inside them both.
I think so. It's a powerful image. The text even describes a coldness in Jesus, a sense of finality.
Oh.
He tells Lucifer that there's no healing for them, that they must each choose between light and shadow.
And that's where we're left, on this cliffhanger.
Yeah, that ending is intense. But before we get to that cliffhanger, Jesus' statement about choosing between light and shadow really struck me. What do you think he means by that? Is he suggesting that even divine figures can fall from grace?
That's a really good question. And you know what I think? That's the brilliance of this whole thing. Yeah. It doesn't give us easy answers. It makes us confront these really complex questions head on. Is this a literal fall from grace we're talking about here? Or is it more symbolic, like a metaphor for the struggles we all face?
Right. It makes you wonder, is this choice between light and shadow something even divine beings have to deal with? What's that say about free will then? Even in like a divine context.
Yeah. And it makes you think about the whole idea of redemption too, right? We've got Lucifer, supposedly redeemed, welcome back to heaven. But is it really true redemption if you're still wrestling with inner darkness?
I think that's something theologians have debated forever. Yeah. And this story, it adds this whole other layer to that. What if redemption isn't a one-time thing? What if it's a process, a constant choice to keep choosing the light even when you're surrounded by all this shadow?
And then you've got Jesus. He's supposed to be the embodiment of God's love, but he's struggling with darkness, jealousy, even wanting to break free from, his destiny. Does that challenge how we traditionally understand his divinity?
It definitely adds something new, yeah. We always see him as this perfect figure, all light and compassion. But here, he's so human. It's startling, but it's also incredibly relatable.
It's like the author saying, look, if even these guys struggle, then it's okay for us to struggle too, right?
We're all flawed. We all mess up. But what matters is recognizing those shadows inside us. And then, trying to make choices that align with the light, even when things are dark.
Let's talk about Lucifer following Jesus to earth. I mean, he just got back into heaven's good graces, and now he's risking it all again. Why? What do you think?
That's a tough one. I think maybe it's guilt, partly. He knows his actions played a role in all of this. Maybe it's his way of trying to make things right, to protect Jesus from going too far.
Well, wouldn't it make more sense to stay safe in heaven?
Maybe, but I think there's something deeper there. He cares about Jesus. He really gets how serious this is. If Jesus falls, the consequences could be, huge.
So it's not just guilt, it's about caring for his brother.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that tells us a lot about Lucifer. The challenge is how we see him. He's not just this pure evil figure, right? We see compassion, loyalty, even love.
Okay, back to that confrontation on the cliff. It feels like more than just a random spot, doesn't it?
For sure. The whole landscape ravaged by storms. It's like a reflection of what's going on inside both of them.
So much chaos. And then you've got Jesus's words about choosing light or shadow. They hit differently in that setting, don't they?
Absolutely. It's like he's saying, this is it, one wrong step, and, we're in trouble. Even in this divine drama, the stakes are high.
Yeah. And what does it even mean to choose? Is it a one-time thing? Or is it something we're always wrestling with?
That's what I love about this. It makes us think about good and evil, redemption, free will. It's like, even in a world created by God, there's still so much darkness.
And then there's the whole thing with God being silent. Why do you think he doesn't get involved?
That's the big mystery. Yeah. Maybe it's a test, forcing his sons to figure things out on their own. Or what if it means God can't control everything? Maybe he can't interfere with free will, even when, everything's at stake.
That's a big thought, isn't it? That even God can't step in. It makes you wonder, what does faith even look like when you're faced with that much uncertainty?
It's a tough question. Lots of people grapple with it, especially when things are rough. If these guys, who are divine, have to make tough choices and deal with doubt, what does that mean for the rest of us?
This whole thing, it really humanizes them, doesn't it? They're not just these archetypes of good and evil. They're complex, just as messed up as we are.
It's what makes it so relatable. It's not just some theological argument. It's about being human. We all crave love, acceptance, and we want to feel like our lives matter. But we also feel inadequate, jealous, we doubt.
It's like the author is showing us ourselves, using these bigger-than-life characters to highlight how complex we all are.
Exactly. And I think that's why it stays with you. Makes you ask tough questions about yourself, about the choices you make, about what shapes your life.
Okay, we're at the end of this part of the deep dive. Huge cliffhanger. Does Lucifer reach Jesus? Do they both fall? Or is there a way back to the light?
Who knows? That's the beauty of it. Leaves you wanting more, thinking about all the possibilities. But I think it also, it makes you think about your own choices, your own struggles, it asks. What would you do if you had to choose between light and shadow?
And with that, I think it's time for a break. We've covered a lot. Jealousy, redemption, free will, even the nature of good and evil. But before we wrap things up, let's bring this back to our listeners. This has been a wild ride, hasn't it? Heaven, redemption, free will, we've covered a lot of ground. But what does it all mean for us, down here on Earth? What can we take away from all this celestial drama?
That's what we need to figure out, right?
Yeah.
We get caught up in this big story, but the real power of it is how it makes us think about our own lives, our own choices.
Exactly. So bringing it back down to Earth, what really stood out to you about the jealousy, the doubt, this whole light and shadow thing?
Honestly, the way it makes these divine figures so human. We put Jesus and Lucifer on these pedestals, pure good, pure evil. But this story, it blows that all up. It shows them as, complex, dealing with the same stuff we deal with.
Right. It's like the author is saying, look, even they have doubts and get jealous, so it's okay if we feel that way too.
Totally. It's a reminder that everyone's flawed, everyone messes up, and that's fine. What matters is admitting it, seeing those shadows inside us, and then, trying to make good choices, even when it's hard.
And then there's the whole redemption thing, both with Lucifer and, the possibility that Jesus might fall. What do you think the author is saying about what redemption even means?
It challenges how we usually think about it. It's not just this one-time thing, like you're forgiven and that's it. This story says it's more like a journey. You keep choosing good, even when you're tempted to do bad. You own up to your mistakes and try to do better.
And what about God? He's silent through this whole thing. That's got to be significant, right?
It really is. And there's so many ways to look at it. Maybe he's letting them figure things out on their own, testing them. Or maybe it means even God has limits. Maybe he can't control everything. He can't stop them from making their own choices.
So even in heaven, even with these divine beings, personal responsibility still matters.
Yeah, we're not puppets. We get to choose. And those choices, they have consequences.
We've talked a lot about the theological stuff, but this story also gets into some heavy psychological stuff too. Jealousy, resentment, wanting your life to mean something. It feels really relatable, even though it's about these, larger than life figures.
That's what makes it stick with you. It goes beyond religion and talks about just being human. Everyone wants to be loved, to belong, to feel like their life has a purpose. And we all have those moments where we feel like we're not enough, or we get jealous, or we start doubting ourselves.
It's like the author is holding up a mirror, using these big characters to show us how complicated we all are.
Exactly. And that's why it makes you think about yourself, the choices you make, what really matters.
This one's pretty intense. We're talking about an epic showdown.
Oh, yeah.
Between, you guessed it, two powerful brothers.
A tale as old as time.
Seriously, though, think cosmic mythology.
Okay.
Meets some seriously deep soul searching. Get ready to rethink everything you thought you knew about good and evil, forgiveness, sacrifice.
And love,
yes.
The love that reaches beyond the heavens. It's a lot.
It really makes you question, everything you thought you knew about redemption and belonging and all of that.
Yeah. Our sources paint a pretty intense picture of this whole pivotal moment. We're talking dimmed heavens.
Whoa.
Trembling, or the entire cosmos is just holding its breath.
Right.
Watching this face-off between Jesus and Lucifer unfold. on a storm-ravaged cliff.
You are immediately plunged into the heart of this conflict. It's not just a personal squabble. This is a cosmic event with implications that could ripple through all of creation.
Yeah. So picture yourself standing on that cliff. Wind is whipping around you.
These two monumental figures are clashing. You can practically feel the weight of like all creation hanging in the balance. And in the midst of all this chaos, there's Lucifer.
Right.
He's described as having this quiet fire of remorse and resolution in his eyes. Not exactly the devil we're used to, right?
It really makes you rethink the traditional image of Lucifer as pure evil. There's a depth to him here. Like this unexpected vulnerability as he's pleading with Jesus to reconsider his self-sacrifice. It raises the question, what if Lucifer isn't simply the villain we've always believed him to be?
And on the other side of this cosmic chessboard, we've got Jesus wrestling with the weight of humanity's sins and honestly feeling overlooked. The source material describes him as expressing bitterness and even jealousy toward Lucifer's seemingly effortless forgiveness.
Interesting.
It's raw, it's human, and honestly, not the Jesus we often see depicted.
It's a side of Jesus that I think challenges a lot of our assumptions. He questions his own worthiness, feels the immense pressure to sacrifice himself, and there's a line that really captures this. I loved them to death, and still, I am not enough.
Oh, wow.
It reveals this vulnerability and depth of emotion that we rarely encounter.
It's almost like their roles have been reversed for a moment.
Yeah.
Lucifer's advocating for unity and peace.
Right.
While Jesus is grappling with anger and resentment. Makes you wonder, are good and evil really as black and white as we've always thought?
This inversion forces us to move beyond simplistic labels. We begin to see the complexities of these characters and their motivations, recognizing that even divine beings experience deep emotional turmoil.
And just when you think that tension can't get any thicker, things take a dramatic turn. The heavens split open, revealing this awe-inspiring throne of light. Clear sign God is stepping in.
Talk about a power shift. The sheer majesty of God's presence, changes everything. Suddenly, both Jesus and Lucifer are humbled before this overwhelming display of divine power.
It's like hitting the pause button on their heated argument. Sets the stage for God to deliver a message that will challenge everything Jesus and Lucifer thought they knew about forgiveness and sacrifice.
And here's where it gets really interesting. God emphasizes that divine love isn't some finite resource that they're competing for. Love, in its purest form, is boundless.
So this completely reframes the conflict. It suggests that Lucifer being forgiven doesn't diminish Jesus' sacrifice, but instead adds another layer of complexity and depth to it. But how do they react to this?
Well, Lucifer undergoes a visible transformation. He seems to finally grasp the concept of humility, acknowledging his place in God's grand design. He's no longer the defiant rebel, but someone seeking understanding and belonging.
So it's a stark contrast to his earlier attempts to persuade Jesus. God's words seem to have genuinely reached him.
His desire for reconciliation, both with God and Jesus, becomes very palpable.
Wow.
He even admits that his exile led him to a deeper understanding of his role in the cosmic order. It challenges the traditional view of Lucifer as solely a figure of rebellion and darkness.
So are you saying that Lucifer's punishment was actually the key to unlocking his true purpose? Like, that flips the whole idea of good and evil on its head?
It makes you wonder, what if the path to redemption isn't linear? What if even the darkest falls can lead to profound growth and understanding?
And what about Jesus? Does God's message resonate with him, especially after witnessing Lucifer's seemingly effortless forgiveness?
It does, but it takes him a little longer to process everything. Remember, he's been carrying this immense burden of sacrifice, feeling alone in his devotion.
Right, and seeing Lucifer being forgiven probably triggered some pretty complicated emotions. It makes me wonder if we can truly forgive when we're still wrestling with our own sense of hurt and injustice.
Absolutely. But there's a shift in Jesus as he listens to both God and Lucifer. The source material mentions a spark of compassion breaking through. It's as if he's starting to see things from a different perspective, recognizing Lucifer's own journey and pain.
It sounds like he's beginning to understand that forgiveness isn't about condoning actions, but about recognizing the potential for change within each of us.
And this realization leads to a pivotal moment of reconciliation. With a softened expression, Jesus extends his hand towards Lucifer.
That gesture speaks volumes. It's a powerful symbol of healing. not just for Jesus and Lucifer,
right,
but for the entire cosmos. The storm ceases, the darkness parts, and radiant light washes over the earth. Like a cosmic sigh of relief, a visual representation of the universe returning to a state of harmony.
The imagery is incredibly powerful, highlighting the potential for forgiveness to mend even the deepest wounds and usher in a new era of understanding.
But what happens next? How does this newfound harmony play out in the grand scheme of things?
That's what we'll explore in our next segment. We'll delve into the aftermath of this pivotal moment, the new balance that emerges, and what it all means for humanity.
I can't wait to uncover those details. But for now, consider this. Can forgiveness and sacrifice coexist, even in the face of jealousy and pride? And could it be that our understanding of good and evil is far more nuanced than we initially believed?
Welcome back. We left off with this incredible moment of reconciliation between Jesus and Lucifer.
Right.
Like this cosmic reset button that sent waves of peace throughout the universe. So now let's explore what happens after the dust settles. How do their roles evolve after this monumental shift?
That's where this concept of duality gets really interesting. The sources describe Jesus and Lucifer working in harmony, each embodying different facets of divine love. And it's not about going back to how things were before the conflict.
Right.
It's about forging a new path together.
So instead of being these opposing forces, they become complementary aspects of a greater whole. Exactly. Think of it like light and shadow. You need both to truly perceive the world. Around you. One can't exist without the other.
All right.
And they both contribute to a complete picture.
That's a powerful analogy. How does this concept of duality play out in their interactions with humanity? Do their roles shift in how they interact with us?
Well, according to the source material, Jesus continues to offer solace and understanding to those who are suffering, embodying compassion and healing.
Right.
But Lucifer takes on a fascinating new role. He no longer tempts humanity towards sin.
Really?
Instead, he becomes a symbol of humility and the transformative power of repentance.
So instead of being like the embodiment of temptation, he becomes a guide for those who have strayed from the path. That's a pretty radical departure from the traditional image of Lucifer.
It really challenges our preconceived notions, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It suggests that Lucifer's fall from grace actually gave him a deeper understanding of human weakness and divine forgiveness.
It makes you wonder if sometimes those who have fallen the furthest are the ones who can best understand the struggle to rise again.
Precisely. He becomes a beacon for those who have stumbled.
Helping
them find their way back to a path of righteousness. And it reinforces the idea that even our biggest mistakes can be opportunities for growth and self-discovery.
This story really underscores the transformative power of redemption, wouldn't you say? Like, it challenges the idea that anyone is beyond the reach of forgiveness and love, even on a cosmic scale.
Absolutely. But this new balance, this dance between light and shadow, raises some interesting questions about humanity as a whole. What does it mean for our understanding of good and evil? Do we start to see things differently?
It makes me think about all the times we label people or situations as simply good or bad. Maybe this reconciliation is a call to look deeper, to recognize the interplay of both forces within ourselves and the world around us.
It's about acknowledging the complexity of life, recognizing that darkness can ultimately lead us toward the light.
Right.
It's not about erasing one or the other, but about finding a balance between these opposing forces.
There's a line from the source material that really captures this. Together, you will shepherd my love through all of creation, as light and shadow, as forgiveness and sacrifice. It speaks to the interconnectedness of everything, even forces that we traditionally see as being at odds with each other.
It's a beautiful illustration of how seemingly opposing sources can work together to guide humanity toward a deeper understanding of divine love. It challenges us to embrace the duality within ourselves and the world around us, to see the potential for growth and transformation in every experience, both light and shadow.
It's like a cosmic tapestry, woven together with threads of light and darkness, forgiveness and sacrifice. But how does the shift play out in the lives of everyday people? Do Jesus and Lucifer actively intervene, or is their influence more subtle, a gentle nudge towards a more compassionate way of being?
That's what we'll explore in our final segment, as we delve deeper into the implications of this cosmic reconciliation for humanity and the world around us.
I'm eager to unpack those details, but before we do, I want to go back to Lucifer's transformation for a moment. The sources describe him as initially being blinded by pride, but ultimately finding humility through his exile.
Right.
What do you make of this shift?
It speaks volumes about the power of hardship and self-reflection. Lucifer's pride, which led to his downfall, ultimately became the catalyst for his growth. It was through his experiences, the consequences of his choices, that he gained a new perspective, recognizing the limits of his own power and the importance of finding his place within a larger order.
So true humility isn't about denying our strengths, but understanding where they fit within the grand scheme of things. It's about recognizing that we are all part of something bigger than ourselves.
Precisely. And sometimes it takes a profound shift in perspective, often born out of challenging experiences, to grasp this concept.
And it seems like Lucifer, having journeyed through pride and exile, is uniquely equipped to guide others who have strayed from the path.
Right.
He understands the struggle, the temptation, and ultimately the transformative power of repentance.
You've hit on a crucial point. Often those who have confronted their own darkness are the ones who can best illuminate the path for others. They bring a unique blend of empathy and understanding, having walked a similar road.
This brings us to a fascinating question. How does this dynamic between Jesus and Lucifer actually play out in the lives of everyday people? Do they intervene directly? Or is it a more subtle influence guiding us towards a deeper understanding of love and compassion?
That's a topic we'll delve into in our final segment as we explore the ripple effects of this cosmic reconciliation on humanity and the world around us.
I can't wait to dive into those details. But until then, listeners, consider this. How has your own understanding of good and evil evolved over time? Are they truly opposing forces? Or are they more interconnected than we might initially believe? Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into this incredible story of cosmic reconciliation. We've seen Jesus and Lucifer move from this clash of ideologies to this surprisingly harmonious partnership, embodying a powerful duality of light and shadow. But how does this all play out for us here on Earth? How does this cosmic shift actually impact humanity?
Well, that's the intriguing part. The sources don't describe grand sweeping interventions. Instead, it's more like a subtle shift in the very fabric of existence.
So it's not like Jesus and Lucifer are suddenly showing up giving lectures on cosmic harmony?
Not quite. Imagine it more as a ripple effect.
Okay.
The reconciliation sets off this wave of healing and understanding that permeates the cosmos. It's a bit like dropping a pebble in a still pond.
Okay.
The ripples spread out, changing the entire landscape,
right,
even though the initial action was small.
Okay, I get the ripple analogy. But how does this abstract cosmic shift translate into actual tangible changes in the lives of people? What are they experiencing differently?
Well, the sources describe a heightened awareness of interconnection. People start seeing the world through a less binary lens, recognizing the interplay of light and shadow within themselves and others.
It's like that saying, there's a crack in everything, that's how the light gets in. Suddenly, flaws and imperfections aren't things to be eradicated, but opportunities for growth.
Exactly. This shift in perspective leads to greater empathy and compassion. People become more forgiving, both of themselves and others. They start to understand that everyone is on their own unique journey, and those journeys aren't always straight lines.
It sounds like a world where judgment gives way to understanding and the desire for punishment is replaced by a yearning for healing.
That's the essence of it.
Yeah.
The reconciliation between Jesus and Lucifer sets this incredible example for the possibility of redemption. Even when things seem utterly broken, it's a powerful reminder that transformation is always possible, that even the darkest hearts can find their way back to the light.
It makes you wonder if maybe we've been looking at good and evil all wrong. What if instead of trying to eliminate one or the other, we focused on understanding their interplay, their interconnectedness?
That's a profound question, and it gets to the heart of this story's message. This new understanding has a ripple effect on how humanity approaches challenges both individually and collectively. There's a greater willingness to seek common ground, to bridge divides, and to work together.
It sounds like a world where conflict resolution isn't about one side winning and the other losing, but about finding solutions that benefit everyone involved. It's about recognizing that we're all in this together, even with our differences.
Precisely. The reconciliation between Jesus and Lucifer serves as this powerful archetype, demonstrating that even seemingly impossible differences can be overcome through forgiveness, sacrifice, and a willingness to embrace complexity.
It's a reminder that even the most ancient stories can still offer us fresh insights and inspire us to envision a more compassionate and understanding world.
Absolutely.
Called A Reflection on Jesus and Lucifer, Dualities of the Soul. And it's not your typical good versus evil take on these figures. It's more about kind of looking at them as symbols of the internal struggles we all face.
Right, like that push and pull between, wanting to do good, but also being tempted to maybe not do the right thing sometimes.
Exactly. And, we often hear about this battle between good and evil.
Right.
But this source kind of reframes that and suggests that maybe it's more about a balance.
Yeah, it's like a balance. It's not so much about one conquering the other, but more about finding that equilibrium within ourselves.
So it's almost like we all have a little bit of both Jesus and Lucifer inside us.
Exactly. And that's what's so interesting about this source. It really encourages us to see these figures not as separate entities, but as reflections of something within us.
So instead of looking at them as sort of these external voices battling it out, we're actually looking inward and saying, hey, maybe this is a reflection of what's happening inside of me.
Yeah, and by exploring their stories, we can maybe gain a better understanding of our own internal conflicts.
So where do we even begin with this? I mean, these are pretty complex figures, right?
Well, the source kind of starts by shaking up some of our preconceived notions about them.
Okay.
For example, it presents Jesus not just as the symbol of love and compassion.
Yeah, which is how we typically think of him.
Right, but also as someone who experienced very human emotions. Things like envy and even pain.
Really? Envy? That's not something you usually associate with Jesus.
I know, it's kind of a surprising take, isn't it?
It is.
But the source kind of highlights this by saying, and I'm going to quote this here, his jealousy is a mirror to anyone who has ever felt overlooked or taken for granted despite selfless giving.
Wow.
So it's basically saying that even Jesus, in his purest form of love, still felt the sting of not being appreciated.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. Like, we've all been there, right?
Absolutely. I think everyone at some point has felt like they're giving and not really getting the same in return.
Totally. So even though he was this embodiment of love, he still struggled with these very human emotions.
Yeah, and it's something that I think makes him much more relatable to us.
I agree. It's almost like by seeing his vulnerability, he becomes more human,
Totally. And it also reminds us that even the most selfless acts don't make us immune to the challenges of just being human.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that we're all in this together. So we've talked about Jesus. Now, what about Lucifer? The source paints him in a pretty different light as well, right?
Yes, definitely. And this is where things get even more interesting. Instead of portraying him as this purely evil figure.
Right, the devil.
Exactly.
The
source actually explores his yearning for belonging and acceptance.
Really? So it's not all fire and brimstone?
Not exactly. You see, even Lucifer, who we often see as the embodiment of defiance, still craves connection, a sense of purpose.
Don't we all?
Exactly.
I mean, at the end of the day, we all want to feel like we belong somewhere, like we have a purpose.
I think that's a pretty universal desire.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's what I find so fascinating about this source. It takes these figures who we think we know and shows how their struggles actually mirror our own experiences in a very human way.
Yeah, it's like they're not so different from us after all.
Exactly.
So it's not just about good versus evil anymore.
Not exactly. You see, the source suggests that even Lucifer's fall from grace might be about more than just rebellion. It could be about a deeper search for identity,
Oh, interesting.
Trying to figure out who he is, where he fits in.
It's like he's on this quest for self-discovery.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
But it's just, playing out on this cosmic scale.
Right, exactly.
So instead of seeing him as just this symbol of evil,
yeah,
we're invited to see him as this complex being who, despite his actions, still wants connection and understanding.
Yeah, and that's where the source really challenges that traditional good versus evil binary. It's not so black and white anymore.
Right.
It's more about recognizing that even within darkness, there can be this yearning for something more, for a sense of belonging and wholeness.
I like that. So how does this relate to us, the listeners? Why should we care about this different interpretation of Lucifer?
Because, it's not really just about Lucifer.
Okay.
The source is using him as an example, I think, to make a bigger point about the human experience.
Okay.
It's saying that even in our darkest moments, even when we mess up, there's still that part of us that wants redemption,
right?
That wants acceptance and love.
So even though he's often seen as this embodiment of evil, his desire for belonging actually makes him more relatable to us.
Absolutely. Because it reminds us that we all have that need to connect, to find our purpose, to feel like we belong.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then the source takes it even further, right? By talking about Lucifer accepting Jesus's hand.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Wait, what?
That's coming up.
Okay, but Lucifer accepts Jesus' help. I don't remember that from Sunday school.
It's not a literal event.
Okay.
But more of a symbolic gesture that the source uses to illustrate a really important point.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's the significance of this gesture? What's the source trying to say here?
Well, we'll have to dive into that after the break.
Stay tuned, folks. So we were talking about Lucifer accepting Jesus' hand.
Right.
And you said it was a symbolic gesture.
Yeah, exactly. The source uses it to represent the possibility of reconciliation.
Okay.
Both within ourselves and with other people, even when things seem really different.
So how does that work? How does Lucifer accepting Jesus' hand show reconciliation?
Well, think about what these figures traditionally represent, right?
Yeah.
Jesus is love and forgiveness.
Right.
And Lucifer is kind of rebellion.
Yeah, going against that divine love.
Yeah, exactly. So when Lucifer accepts Jesus' hand, it's like he's acknowledging that he needs that connection, that forgiveness, even after all he's done.
So it's like he's letting go of his pride, admitting he needs help.
Exactly. Which is something we all struggle with sometimes.
Yeah, totally.
It's like we're not meant to go through life alone.
It takes a village, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Right.
And that even when we make mistakes, there's always that possibility of coming back,
Finding forgiveness, healing.
Right.
So it's not just about Lucifer's journey, but like a bigger idea of reconciliation.
Right. It could apply to so many things.
Relationships, conflicts.
Exactly. The source suggests that it's possible to bridge even the biggest divides.
Like if Jesus and Lucifer, who are supposed to be these polar opposites, can connect,
right,
then maybe there's hope for the rest of us.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really hopeful message, especially now when things feel so divided.
Yeah, like there's always a chance to find some common ground.
Right, to build bridges instead of walls.
Love that.
Yeah.
And that's where the idea of redemption comes in, right?
Yes, and the source makes it clear that redemption is not a one-time thing.
Okay.
It's more like a process.
So it's not just about being forgiven, but constantly trying to be better.
Right.
Learning, growing.
Exactly. It's about acknowledging that we're all works in progress.
We're all a little messed up.
Yeah. We all have our flaws, and that journey to becoming whole, well, it never really ends.
It's a lifelong thing.
Yeah, I think so.
The source actually says, redemption is not a single act, but an ongoing journey, a continual renewal of the self in light of our imperfections.
Wow.
Powerful stuff. So it's like we're constantly refining ourselves.
Shedding old patterns, becoming more who we really are.
And that ties back into that idea of duality, right?
Yes. Remember we were talking about how we all have both Jesus and Lucifer inside us.
Yeah, that we have the capacity for both good and bad.
Exactly.
So it's not about pretending we're perfect.
No.
It's about owning those flaws.
Yeah, understanding them and integrating them into who we are.
It's about radical self-acceptance.
Absolutely. Accepting ourselves, shadows and all.
And then using those experiences, both the good and the bad, to learn and grow. Wow, this idea of embracing both our light and shadow, it's a lot to think about.
It is.
It's like the source is saying true wholeness comes from accepting every part of ourselves.
Not just the parts we like.
Yeah, not just the parts that make us feel good.
It's about recognizing that our flaws, our mistakes,
Yeah.
those are all part of what makes us who we are.
And instead of hiding them, we can learn from them.
Right.
And ultimately become more compassionate.
Understanding, yeah.
It's like we can turn those negative experiences into something positive.
Yeah, they become stepping stones on that path to becoming whole.
I love that.
The source is asking us to change how we look at things,
See those flaws not as something bad.
but as opportunities to learn and grow.
It's a powerful message that even when things are tough, we can still find redemption, healing, renewal.
Absolutely. And this process of redemption, as the source says, isn't just for individuals.
Okay.
It applies to relationships too.
So if Jesus and Lucifer can find reconciliation,
And we can too.
we can find ways to heal those rifts in our own lives.
That's what the source seems to be saying.
Like, look, if these two figures
Yeah.
who represent totally opposite forces
Right.
can find a way to come together, then there's hope for us.
There's hope for healing, forgiveness, building bridges.
Instead of walls.
Exactly.
Wow, that's a message we all need to hear these days.
Definitely. Especially when things feel so divided.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that even when it seems hopeless,
Yeah.
we can still find common ground
Connect with each other
and move forward together.
toward a more peaceful future.
A more understanding future.
It's a powerful message. Even when things are tough,
Yeah.
reconciliation is always possible.
It's about choosing to see past the surface level stuff.
To remember we're all human.
And to have faith in the power of forgiveness.
In understanding.
That's powerful.
And we're back for the last part of our deep dive. Today, we're talking about Jesus and Lucifer, but not in the way you might think.
Right, it's not your typical good versus evil story.
We're looking at them through the lens of this source, a reflection on Jesus and Lucifer, dualities of the soul.
And what's really cool about this source is that it suggests their stories, well, they can actually teach us something about our own internal struggles.
If you've ever felt like you're battling those opposing forces within yourself.
Yeah, like wanting to do what's right, but also being tempted to do the opposite.
This deep dive might give you some new insights.
Absolutely. It's like the source is saying, hey, even these iconic figures, they dealt with the same stuff we all do.
It makes you feel a little less alone, right? Yeah. Knowing that even Jesus and Lucifer, they had their own human struggle.
Exactly. It's all about recognizing that we all have this capacity for both light and shadow inside us.
And instead of trying to pretend that those darker impulses don't exist.
Yeah, that's that helpful.
The source encourages us to try and understand them.
Work through them.
And ultimately, integrate them into a more complete sense of self.
So it's not about trying to be perfect.
More about accepting ourselves for who we really are.
Flaws and all.
Because those imperfections are part of what makes us human.
They're what make us unique.
And the source suggests that this process of accepting ourselves,
warts and all,
that's actually key to achieving real wholeness.
True wholeness, not some fake picture-perfect version of ourselves.
Yeah, embracing the messy reality of who we are.
And as we talked about earlier,
we all have both Jesus and Lucifer inside us.
Right, that capacity for great love and compassion.
But also for selfishness, even envy sometimes.
It's like we're constantly walking this tightrope.
Trying to find our balance between those two forces.
And find that balance.
Well, that's what the journey of redemption is all about.
It's not about becoming some kind of idealized version of ourselves.
But about constantly making those choices that align with our values.
Even when it's hard.
Being honest with ourselves about our shortcomings.
But also having faith in our ability to grow and change.
And this journey,
it never really ends, does it?
It's ongoing.
The source says, redemption is not a single act, but an ongoing journey. A continual renewal of the self in light of our imperfections.
It's like we're always evolving.
Learning from our mistakes.
Becoming a little more whole each day.
And just as Lucifer sought that reconciliation with Jesus.
Right.
The source suggests that we can also seek reconciliation within ourselves.
And with others.
Mending those broken connections.
Building understanding and unity.
This idea of reconciliation, it feels so important right now.
Especially with everything going on in the world.
So much division.
It's like the source is offering us this glimmer of hope, saying that even the deepest divides,
they can be healed
if we're willing to put in the effort.
It's about choosing to see the possibility of forgiveness and understanding.
Even in the midst of conflict.
So if you're listening to this and you're dealing with some inner turmoil.
Or feeling torn between different parts of yourself.
Just remember,
you're not alone.
We all face these challenges.
Even Jesus and Lucifer did.
And their journey. Well, it shows us that even in those dark moments,
there's always a chance for redemption, for healing,
for finding that wholeness within ourselves.
And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
I hope you all got something out of it.
Remember what the source said?
In the heart of every conflict lies the potential for transformation. And in every shadowed soul, the spark of redemption waits to be ignited.
That's pretty powerful. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll catch you on the next Deep Dive.